Okay. Recording in progress.
Where was she when we needed her?
Take it away.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. So tonight I shall be talking about the results for the fourth revised edition of the Clovis survey and introducing the Folsom survey. And this isn't working now.
You use the mouse and just click on it, it should. Liz, you want to go home? You can't move the building.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep, I can just do this manually. Put this down there. So, part one, we'll talk about the Clovis survey. Just have to make sure this thing's in the right way. So there'll be a brief introduction and history of the survey for those who don't know too much about it. The post-2007 survey updates, the aims and objectives of the survey, results, and future aims and objectives. So the first survey was initiated in 1985 by David Meltzer, and the results were published a year later in BTAS. There was 205 Clovis points, which were reported from 95 of the 254 counties in Texas. And as you can see, the darker areas are where the points were actually recorded from, and the white boxes show the counties that didn't have any Clovis points at that time. In 1995, the second survey was done by Michael Beaver and Dave Meltzer, which added 201 more points from a further 33 counties. And to compare the two, you can see that apart from a few central Texas areas, there wasn't that much really added in terms of the regions. There was a couple of points from El Paso and some down in the valley. And then the second update to the survey was published, and that was the last, before I did mine, that was the last survey that was published, and that was by Beaver and Meltzer in 2007. A further 138 points were added and 21 new counties. And this time I've actually indicated where the regions, I based my regions on the same as what David based his on, just to keep everything sort of consistent. So some of the boundaries, a lot of people won't agree with, but I think the most confusing one would be the Plains Panhandle, because this area here is still considered the Plains Panhandle, and probably a lot of you guys probably won't agree with that, but just to keep it all consistent, this is what the Plains Panhandle area is consisted of. So, and then to compare again, you can see that there was quite a bit of information is still required from the North Texas area, the Trans-Pecos area, and down here in the valley and in the coastal. So in 2019, the survey come under my directorship whilst I was at TAL, and we've agreed that the TAL facility will now permanently curate that, which is even after beyond my time, they will keep it running, and all the records that are generated can be sent there, and they will be added to the survey as and when necessary. So the post-2007 survey updates, all post-2007 records that were sent in to David at the time, and he put in call for data in certain journals. So people were still sending him their record sheets or their records of Clovis points. he was keeping them all at his facility in College Station, but he hadn't got the resources to carry out a new survey. So when I confronted him in 2020, he said, great, that'd be a really good idea. So all the 2007 records were sent over to me at TAL. An extensive literature review was also carried out, and I was explaining to one of your colleagues earlier, during COVID, this was an amazing opportunity to be able to do that. I could go into the TAL library, nobody else was there, and so we didn't sort of any conflicting issues with the COVID protocols. And a lot of the, including your own society, but a lot of the journals and the editors and the librarians helped with giving me access. So I got all the HAS newsletters and journals. I got all the Latieras. I got a lot of the BTASs, and it was good fun just going through all of those, trying to find Clovis and also Folsom, because I did have a hope that a Folsom survey could come out of it eventually. So the search was extended to Texas site reports and records, because a lot of those, especially from the Pruitt associates, are all sent to TAL. So there was a lot of survey reports and excavation reports also that I went through. And it's an easy job. I mean, some of these monographs are huge, but once you just go through the contents page and find the Paleo-Indian section, it's very, 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 very easy. I mean, because there's not many of these sites have got a paleo component. And if it has, look to see if there's a Clovis point. If not, that's that one done. The call for data was sent out and published in all the journals in Texas and beyond. We had one out in the SAA Archaeological Record. We had one in the Plains Panhandle. We had one in the Mammoth Trumpet. And also most of the journals in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and New Mexico, and Arkansas. Outreach to university and local museums as well. That was also quite productive. And personal visits to Texas Arrowhead shows. Had some great times, especially one in Perryton. It was very good. Trying to build a trusting relationship with archaeologists and collectors, and that sort of activity can really help. And they were very forthcoming with lots of information. It was great, good fun. So the current aims and objectives: to update the survey to a museum archive standard. David never had that facility available for him. So again, something that we did during COVID. We got an intern who helped me with digitizing the record sheets, make PDFs out of them, put them in a file, renumber them and relabel them. And now that will also be added to a digital database, which sometime in this coming few months will be actually uploaded to the TAL website. And then this will be available. First of all, it'll be available for researchers, but we hope to be able to make it available for the general public once we can make it so that certain sensitive information, you know, landowners' addresses and contact details are not on that page. Just talking about the digital record of all the records. Set up a digital database for academic and public access. Expand on counties and regions that are underrepresented. Reach out to some of the sort of local societies where we've got these barren areas. And I'll get back to that in a minute and explain why we think there is some of these barren areas. So down here, a lot of this land is ranch land. And so collectors have never been able to get on there, but ranchers have got collections of these things. And if we can build up a relationship to try and get access to some of these, I'm sure that we'll have a lot more of these points will be able to fill into these counties. These areas over here in Brewster County and I think Culberson and Davis County, they're all either on the national park or the state park. So again, collectors aren't allowed to go on there. So it's only when surveys or construction is carried out where these things are actually come. North Texas and up in the Panhandle, there's no reason why there shouldn't be any points from up there. It's just archaeological bias, probably. Just haven't got them yet. So I managed to, with the 2007 post records, I managed to get another 465 points. That's just in 2 years from 33 new counties. Let's put the survey over 1,000 and from 188 of the 254 counties. McFadden Beach was reorganized and Gault and Hogay added for the first time. McFadden Beach was a complete nightmare because it's been collected by various different people. It's been labeled and recorded. There was a lot of duplicate points. There was a lot of points that weren't Clovis. And it took a while to get it all sorted, but we finally did get it done. The Gault site had never been added to the survey, so that was added, and Hogay was added. Hogay is a cache of Clovis freeforms and points that was found in Bastrop County. So this is the new map that I generated. That's the Hogay, that's the Gault, and that's McFadden. And McFadden Beach had over 104 points. It's not just one site. That's all material that's either been washed down through various rivers and then redeposited onto the coast, or, as many of us believe, and I believe, there's a buried land surface out here somewhere, and these are actually being eroded after storms or high sea level and then deposited on the beach. The reason I'm saying that is we do know that back in like the time of Clovis, that was probably where the land surface was about here. And also the points that are being washed up are in immaculate condition. They haven't traveled 200 or 300 miles down a river being bashed around against rocks and everything. These are almost pristine. So I think there is definitely a land surface out there. You can see that the white areas have diminished. Oops, sorry, I do apologize. Diminished quite a lot. I've gone too far, sorry. There's only 2 counties now in the Trans-Pecos area that haven't got Clovis. I keep pushing the wrong button, I apologize. Hope this is not going out live. A lot more material from Central Texas. Damn it. And also down in the valley and on the coastal plains, and also up in the plains Panhandle. So similar patterns to other surveys. It's the amount of points that are found in each region, each survey is remaining the same if you take away what happened with McFadden Beach and Hogay and Gault, because they were exceptions. But mainly the actual quantity of points are remaining sort of consistent. So the future aims and objectives continue to build on the survey. Even after my project is finished, people are still going to be encouraged to send their records in so we can add them to the survey as and when. It just won't need another major update to the survey. It can be done sort of like every 2 or 3 months. Someone can just add those records to the survey. Reach out to more collectors and local museums. That's been a very productive part of the project. So hopefully we can continue doing that. Reach out to more collectors. And that is actually happening because word of mouth, you know, oh, this is strange English guy collecting Clovis points. You know, he's not going to steal them off you. He just wants the information. So people are getting that message across. Hopefully get that done by the 2023, as I said. Extend survey to bordering US states and Mexico. It'd be interesting to see with the bordering counties and the bordering states from Mexico to see, because there wasn't any political borders in Clovis time. So those points would be, sort of, very much still of interest to us in Texas. And try to encourage other US states to set up similar surveys. As far as I know, there isn't any other state that has a Clovis or a Folsom Point survey. There's paleo surveys, there's fluted point surveys, but it'd be good to set up to encourage other US states to set up their own surveys. So now I'll just introduce briefly the Folsom Point. We were very lucky to get funding from the Summerlee Foundation, and for the next year at least, the Folsom Point survey is going to be managed by my colleague Steve Davis for the JTAH, myself, and Tal, with thanks from an anonymous benefactor and also the Summerlee Foundation. So the aims and objectives build on the previous Folsom data sets. Official 1939, there was 22 from 5 counties. And then Largent et al. Had 329 from 57. So, oh goodness, I apologize. So you can see with the distribution of Folsom points, there's 100 over here in Davis County. That's just one site, which I think is something Sands, Whispering Sands, something like that. I haven't really into the Folsom survey as yet, but it's already, we've doubled what the amount of points that we've got here, just by looking again by the journals and the reports. And at the end of the year, when I do the publication, it'd be very interesting to see if there's any similar patterns to what's happening with Clovis. For instance, are these quantities here similar to what's happening with the Clovis ones? Looking forward to that a lot. And as I said before, this one big site here. We also know there's another big site up in the Panhandle, but this was as of 1991. Tim Perdler and Largent again increased again to 345. Don't know how many counties was added, but I think it was about a dozen. So we're up to about probably nearly 60 or 70 counties that have now reported Folsom points. So hopefully complete another thorough literature review. That's what we're doing at the moment. We're going through most of the journals and the site reports to try and get more occurrences from Texas. Again, reach out to collectors and avocationals, because they were very productive when I was doing the Clovis survey. And then carry out a comparative analysis of the Clovis survey. That's probably one of the most important things and the most relevant things, to see how their sort of the distribution and occurrences changed, because even though Folsom was more or less contemporaneous at the end of the Clovis era, there was a huge change in their activities. They weren't hunting mammoth or any megafauna. They were hunting bison and horse and things like that. Extend both the Clovis and Folsom surveys to incorporate points from bordering US and Mexican states. So just a few observations. I don't know if any of you have heard of Dana Harper. He lives in Houston half the year and in Europe the other half. He's made a hobby of collecting good provenienced points. And this is just a selection of some of his Clovis ones. He's going to put this on display in a semi-permanent gallery. I don't know whereabouts it is, but one of you guys might know. It's going to be in Houston. I met him at the Temple Arrowhead show, and he only gets points that have got a good provenience, and all these points have come from Texas, East Texas, Southeast Texas, and Louisiana. And there's some. So there's some of the points from Dana's collection. What interests me is that they are, especially this one and this one, of the fishtail Clovis variety. This is going to provide as a subject for a paper later in the year, where we're looking at fishtail points from South America to see if there's any connection between the two, because we still don't really know where Clovis come from. And with all these fishtail points that that Dana's got in his collection, it was very obvious that there's quite a lot of these points are turning up in Louisiana and Texas. These like obvious fishtail type coins, and there's some more over that side, over up the other end, which I couldn't reach with my pointer. Those ones up there, but so it should make it for an interesting paper. Some beautiful points. All of those are from Texas. This was found a long while ago, probably in the 50s or 60s. And that came from Buffalo Bayou on the Houston Ship Canal. And then you can see again, there's another remarkable fishtail point with the actual Clovis technology with it. That's another variant, which we call Ross County. That was like an Ohio area, but this was back in the 50s before Clovis was really defined. They used to call these Ohio points, but then they changed it to Ross County. That's another little point from Lake Houston, and there's a Folsom Point next to it. It's a very nice point indeed. Just giving you some local points to look at. Now, this was found. This is the Harper collection, but this was found by a guy called Mark Adams. And unfortunately, we haven't got a scale for it, but the point over that side, that's about 7 or 8 inches long. So this is huge, this platter. There's been several platters found. Platter is a large, ovate, huge, like sort of flake core, as some people call it, but they're very, very heavy. And a lot of people say this is what they used to carry around. After you've got the nodule, they would smash up the nodule and get about 5 or 6 of these, and that's what they would use to carry the raw material around. It's been argued that this is a jasper, Clovis jasper from I think East Texas or West Texas. I can't remember which. I think West Texas. Oops. Gone too far. This is, I can't say too much about this just yet because we're still doing some research on it. This was found in Sebastopol in Trinity County, which I don't think is too far away from you guys. This is still in the collection of Mark Adams. This is made on a fragment of mammoth tusk. It's been, we did some research down at the UT SC lab in Austin, carried out some UT scans. It's gone off to to a colleague of mine, Tim Rowe, who is a proboscidean expert, and he's confirmed it is mammoth ivory. It's also been confirmed that it is of ancient origin, so it's not a modern replica, but this is completely unique. There's nothing like it anywhere in the world. So even in Siberia and in Eastern Europe, where they were utilizing mammoths to make tools, we've got bone points, but we've got nothing like a projectile point. So with Mark's permission, we're going to sort of carry out some more research on it. It should come out in a very, very high peer-reviewed paper. Hopefully we're going to get in Science or Science Advances. But at the moment, I can't say too much else about it because obviously it's got to be published, and but it's caused some level of excitement, and I thought I'd just show you that because it's almost in your region. And my colleague down at the Museum of Coastal Bend, you had her here a little while ago, Heather Parra. She's going to be setting up an exhibition of mammoths, mastodon, and man in a museum, and this will go on display there for a year. So watch out for that exhibition. Thank you very much to the Summerlee Foundation, the journal, Texas Archeological History, and my colleagues at TAL and the University of Austin at Texas. And thank you all for inviting me and listening. Sorry, it's a bit rushed, but I had to rush through because of the technical issues. Yes.
There is one other mammoth bone point that was found lodged in a vertebrae.
Yeah, but again, it wasn't the projectile point. We've got ivory bone or ivory points. There's about 5 of those, but this is the first time that a projectile point has been made out of a piece of mammoth tusk. The one you're talking about is Manus, I think, in Washington State.
Can I ask, dovetailing with that, what year was that found?
This one?
Yeah.
Last year.
Okay, I was gonna say, we hadn't heard of that.
Did you find that from the Texas church site?
No, he came up to me when I was at the temple, and he said, I've got some Clovis points. And then he said, I've also got one that is a unique raw material.
Yeah.
He had no idea that it was going to be made out of mammoth tusk.
Is it now?
It is. That's what I'm saying. You can't see it on those photographs too well, and it's very poorly done. But the CT scans do it much more justice. There's actually got 2 flutes, one on either side. It's got lateral grinding down both sides. It's got an impact fracture at the top. So I mean, it provides the ultimate association between man and mammoth, really.
And when are they gonna have that presentation down in Victoria?
That's going to be next year. Heather's setting that up, but hopefully by then we'll have the science paper out by then, and then all the information will be able to be done.
I know about half the room has been down there, and some of them recently digging with Heather. It's the Museum of the Coastal Bend. It's right off US 59, maybe a mile off the freeway. It's a great museum. A lot of really good stuff there.
Exhibition in the fall.
Yeah.
I don't know, it might be delayed now. But
We'll find out about it. Heather's gonna maybe be a speaker of ours, if not later this year or early next year. We got a good relationship with her. We will definitely let you all know when that
That
happens.
excavation is on every Friday.
Yeah.
And that's with Bill Birmingham and his other colleagues.
They've got a great site down there, about 9,000, over 9,000 years old, on the terrace of the Guadalupe River, where the river used to be. It's actually a mile north of where the current river is. And like he said, they excavate there every Friday. Gosh, they've been digging there about 20 years.
Yeah, Heather might even be listening tonight. So if you're there, Heather, hello, Heather.
Yeah, we will definitely get the word out to you all when they have that excavation.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you real quick.
Is that, I'm going to lady. She had her hand up.
I'll keep it myself. Go ahead.
When you go with the collectors, do they know a lot about the coins or?
They know a lot more than we give them credit for. A lot of them don't just collect and then sort of just keep them all sort of hidden or put them on their walls. They like to be told what they are. They like to be informed of some of the interesting things that could have been done with them. Some of them know think they know more than they do, but they're always willing to learn. And now that relationship is becoming much more, well, it's much thinner. I mean, it used to be a very wide gulf between archaeologists and collectors, and I think avocationals have really helped because that's a little stepping stone between the two. And I know that Tom Hester and Tim Pertler done a lot of work in this, you know, and so they have been a very productive resource, definitely. Yes.
Does your survey attempt to identify the source of the material?
Yes, it can be difficult because to visual identify lithic raw material is very dangerous because you're tempted to choose a lithic resource or source that you know about, and that could be thousands of kilometers away. And there might be a more local source, which is very similar to that, which you're not aware of. Or when I say you, but us. So what we tend to do is to try to identify whether it's chert or whether it's obsidian or whether it's jasper or whether it's quartzite. And once we can sort of narrow it down, the smaller subtypes are easier to actually identify the sources for. So jaspers only come from a certain area, and obsidians are very easy to trace. Chert is a lot more difficult. You have to sort of go on your best sort of guess scenario. But I was talking to a gentleman earlier in the audience. We've now discovered that if you put Edwards chert under a UV lamp, it will get off a resonance of a sort of orangey, sort of red sort of hue. It only tells you it's an Edwards chert. It doesn't say what type of Edwards it is, because there's about 20 different types of Edwards chert in that whole plateau. There's a lot of different types. You've got Fort Hood, Pedernales, Root Beer, Georgetown. So again, it's very difficult to actually trace a raw material source unless that point came from a provenience where it's very close to a lithic source, which is very similar to that point. So, and of course, a lot of those don't, because they're either isolates or coming from private collectors.
Yeah, for the coast, there's really no sources. Like,
yeah, the material down there is quite,
but there's
quite
a lot
poor.
of points, and there was a lot of wildlife, but
Yeah,
a lot of the surfaces where you would find that are deeply buried. Also, so
Yep.
you don't expect to find them. So they must have been carrying this stuff a long way always.
well, define a
Trading.
long way. Back in Clovis times, 200 or 300 miles isn't very far. These people weren't living in one place, they were completely nomadic. They were following rivers, and they were following seasons, and they were following herds of animals. So they were going from waterhole to waterhole to waterhole. It's only during the later periods of the Clovis period where people actually had camps and then started thinking, well, we'll probably stay here for the season. But even after that, they just upped and left and went off somewhere else. It was only in the Folsom times where they're getting more semi-permanent occupation area. And we know that because you've got sites like Blackwater Draw that have so many different variants of Clovis Point and so many different types of raw material. So people were converging on Blackwater Draw, whether it's to sort of like change, like getting more into breeding. So you're keeping the gene pool clean by taking women from other groups, whether or not you're sort of changing raw materials and swapping technologies with people, swapping raw materials. But if you look at the assemblage at Blackwater Draw, it's got obsidian, it's got jasper, it's got Edwards chert that only comes from Texas. I know Texas and Blackwater Draw is not very far away, But you've got Hartfield chert from Wyoming. You've got other cherts from Colorado. So there's obviously a lot of people converging there at one time and then discharging themselves. So yes,
We have a question from the Zoom chat, wanting to know, when you reach out to collectors, have you considered, or do you do that via some of the social media sites? Because we know that there are several groups that will will use those as places to discuss finds on private property.
I don't personally, but Tim Pertler and Tom Hester, and there's no point me doing it because they don't know me. Tom and Tim have been on those sites for a long time. There's also Charles Lintz and David Kalami, who work very closely with us. They all monitor these sites very closely, and then they let me know or let us know at TAL. And sometimes they put us in touch with those collectors. If they want to stay anonymous, that's fine. If they just give us the data, that's good. But I'm too old to go onto social media now. Plus, I don't need to because Tim and Tom are already there doing it. And just to get another archaeologist butting in on their territory, they might get a little bit freaked.
There's another question on there from Jimmy who wants to know, are all of the volcanic materials from both the TCFPS and the TFFPS being sourced like with XRF?
The ones that have already been recorded before me have been done so. And again, Tom Hester was the one who he did his obsidian and trace analysis project. There was also another one of your colleagues, Dub Kirk. He was doing some XRF analysis with Tom Williams at TAL. That research is still not been published, but I don't think they did anything that wasn't already known that Tom Hester had already done. If we get any, I haven't come across a new obsidian point yet. If I did, or another volcanic material, for instance, then I would hopefully research some or explore some analysis opportunities for them. Definitely.
Alan, are all these Clovis points about exactly the same age range?
That's another good question. It depends on what, if you're a long Clovis person or a short Clovis person. Some people believe that Clovis was literally no longer than 250 years. Some people say it's a little bit wider than that. If it was a little bit wider, that would help us because it takes us closer to when older than Clovis was supposed to be around. Because at the moment we've got sort of a 6,000 year gap between the dated older than Clovis and the earliest Clovis. And a lot of people are wondering why we've got this huge 6,000 year gap in the chronology. But that's basically down to the small period that Clovis has been put in. Now, I'm to blame for that a little bit because when I did my thesis, when I looked at Clovis all over North America, I only wanted reliable dated sites. So my oldest site was Page Ladson, which was 11,500, and the most recent was 10,060, which was from Oklahoma, Jake Blood. So I've got a 260 year or whatever period, but we know they're probably older, but I just couldn't bring myself to jump in and say, oh yes, he's much older. We got Clovis at 15,000, because unless you've got the actual science to back you up or the facts, you can't just do that. But yeah, I mean, I like to call it Clovis aged period. We know anything fluted that's associated with mammoth or megafauna, we know that's Clovis or Clovis aged. because we don't think that older than Clovis was fluted. So whenever you find something that's not fluted and it's in an old deposit, then you're looking at something that's much older.
We got time for 2 more questions.
Have they found any Clovis point that's hafted,
No.
ice flow or something like that?
The chances of finding one of those are very slim. Possibly the submerged site of what we were talking about there, of McFadden Beach. More likely, you're going to find it in somewhere like Florida, in the Everglades, where you got those submerged sites there. Or you might even find one out in California sort of area where you've got the tar pits. That'd be excellent. You know, because the preservation out there is very, very good. But as yet, we've got no evidence of well, we've got evidence of hafting just in the actual lithic points themselves, but we haven't even got any sort of like real good evidence for the shaft that goes on to a point, let alone actually something that's still hafted.
Any more?
One more, go. No,
Well, Clovis is definitely a dark point.
no. I also, from my thesis, I concluded that I don't think they were projectile points. I think a lot of them were hafted knives and they were thrusted points. They were, I think, if you're going to go around throwing a load of pointy things at mammoths, they're going to get pretty pissed. And George Frisson did a lot of work doing some experimental analysis on trying to hunt an elephant in Africa. There was a controlled trial on some elephants. They had to give up in the end and use an elephant gun to bring this thing down because it was getting so, pardon my French, pissed with all these sticks sticking in him, and none of them were actually doing any damage apart from, you know, making him more angry. I think you're going to, back in England, we've got elephant butchery sites, and there's evidence of an elephant that got trapped or stuck in a bog, and then a frenzy with people just going over there, stabbing it with these sticks, trying to find the arteries to try and kill it. And then you've only got a limited time before all the predators come in, and the flies and the buzzards and so you haven't got this whole theory about throwing spears and killing mammoths I think is just totally wrong. But it did happen in Arizona. We know that for a fact. On one site that which Bowery excavated, because one mammoth wandered off with about 6 points in it and died. And then we found the points about 10,000 years later. It was covered up in a bog and it wasn't butchered, and the points were still inside the mammoth's carcass. So we know it wasn't butchered, it just wandered off and died from its wounds. So, but again, we don't know if they were thrown in there or just stuck in there. I don't think they were thrown at them. I think they were, some of these really long points as well, I think were hafted knives. They weren't just really, really long spears.
Folks, we gotta go. We gotta be out by 8 o'clock, so if you can help us with the chickens. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
It's virtual, so we don't have a time cap, and we can ask questions for about 2 hours from, because I know we're leaving.